Shun'ei found himself cast into an all-encompassing darkness. What is this place? Where am I? His voice was swallowed by the darkness, fading before it could even echo. He was floating, groping around in the air fruitlessly, as though suspended in water. Darkness everywhere, but despite this, he could make out his own form perfectly. Nothing else, just himself. Meiten? Grandpa? Nothing. The silence was deafening, only serving to amplify his fear and solitude. As much as he struggled and writhed, the only sensation he felt was the light, unending spin of his body. His breath quickened, his heart raced, just when he couldn't take any more, just when he opened his mouth to scream. A noise. The next thing Shun'ei knew, cracks were forming before him. They spread through the darkness, crunching like crushed glass. The bright, white cracks ran outward like the strings of a spider's web, before finally the center of them all crumpled. Huh? Fragments began falling off one by one. As they fell away, they revealed a world of countless twinkling lights, like a night sky beyond reason or explanation. Something about that glimmering world felt familiar to Shun'ei. On impulse he reached toward it, only to hear a sudden ringing in his ears. Shun'ei grimaced at the din, but after a moment, he realized that it was a voice. He focused, trying to make sense of what it was saying, and make sense of it he did. Destroy everything. A chill ran down Shun'ei's spine. He felt a strong power stirring somewhere deep inside him, a dreadful impulse overwhelming emotions. Loneliness, fear, despair, sorrow, anger. No! He swatted the air in a vain attempt to smother the voice. You are the power of destruction. Feel the rage, the grief, the fear, the despair. Destroy everything. He could see something beyond the cracks. It seemed spherical, yet box-shaped, yet humanoid. Shut up already. Destroy. Ugh. The voice shook his mind as an urge threatened to burst through his chest. No matter how hard he struggled, he was alone. The loneliness heightened his fear, wearing him down into submission. A split second more and the pain would have engulfed him, but before it could, the area within the cracks glowed, from which huge red and blue hands appeared and shoved Shun'ei. When Shun'ei opened his eyes, he was greeted by a familiar ceiling. He sat up with ragged breaths and looked over to see Meiten-kun, who looked back concerned. Are you okay, Shun? That one was even worse than the nightmare you had last night. Meiten-kun hugged his pillow tightly out of anxiety. Shun'ei stared down at his hands. Shun'ei had been having this nightmare for as long as he could remember. At first it had just been him floating endlessly in darkness, but as a young boy, that was enough to leave Shun'ei stricken with fear and loneliness. When he brought the anxiety from that nightmare into reality, his power became too much for him to handle. It was his master Tung Fu who had given him headphones and bandages to make it easy to envision containing his power. But at some point, Shun'ei's nightmare changed. Cracks were forming in the darkness and growing wider each day. It hadn't affected his daily routines, possibly thanks to Master Tung's teachings and Shun'ei's own emotional control, visualization, and personal growth. He hadn't even tossed and turned in his sleep. According to Meiten-kun, Shun'ei had only started doing this recently. It started the day after they faced that mysterious monster in the last KOF tournament. The most Shun'ei could remember of his dreams was up to where the crack spread. Everything after disappeared when he woke up, so it was hard for him to explain what the nightmare was, or whether it had anything to do with that monster. The only indelible memory was of sheer agony, and no matter what he did, the nightmare came back night after night. I thought I'd matured after fighting in KOF, but I'm starting to question that. Shun'ei and Meiten-kun had just wrapped up morning training and were now at a watering hole halfway up a mountain path. As the former splashed water on his face, the latter shook his head vigorously. You can't start second guessing yourself, Shun. Besides, if you ever lost control like before, you have me and Master Tung. Oh yeah, and Terry, and Andy, and Kyo. Meiten-kun started counting on his fingers, then gave up on that and threw his arms wide. Anyway, the point is we'd figure something out. Relax. Shun'ei studied his close friend for a few moments before smiling with relief. I guess you're right. Thanks, Meiten. This is going to be fun. The friends bumped fists and started climbing the steps again. Thin clouds surrounded the mountains while the morning sunlight illuminated the world around with a pale pink hue. You know, I'm not planning on losing control. I know. That's why you're training so hard. Their cheery voices resonated through the crisp mountain air.
We await your return, warrior.